So I think we should just kick off. And as earlier stated, I will be taking you through safeguarding, what it entails, the principles, and also looking at risk management under safeguarding. So, what is safeguarding? Safeguarding means protecting people's health, well being, and human rights, and enabling them to live free from harm, abuse, and neglect. So, if you were to forget everything else, all you need to remember is that safeguarding means to protect. And who are you protecting? You're protecting everyone who you come into contact with, be it your colleagues, be it your research participants, be it children, be it vulnerable people. And vulnerable people are described as um, people who are at risk, either because of their age, it could be because of ailments, or because of their sexual orientation. So I will also go into some key definitions that we will see as we delve into this topic. The first being abuse. Remember, we talked about safeguarding, meaning that it is a protection from abuse, harm, and neglect, or exploitation of any kind. So, abuse is defined as the mistreatment or harm inflicted upon an individual. So, this can either be physical, emotional, psychological, or sexual, and it often results in injury, distress, or suffering. Abuse can occur in various forms and contexts, including interpersonal relationships, institutions, and society or societal structures. Then we want to delve into the types of abuse or examples, and there's physical abuse. This is where physical harm is inflicted by a person, and you can do this by hitting, punching, kicking, or using weapons. Then we have emotional or psychological abuse, and this is where a person inflicts emotional or physical harm through behaviors such as verbal insults, humiliation, manipulation, intimidation, or threats. And this also includes bullying. Then we have sexual abuse, and this is, I would say, one of the most common and known types of abuse. And this is where a person engages in non consensual sexual activities or behaviors, including rape, molestation, sexual harassment, exploitation, or coercion. Then we have financial abuse, and this is exploiting or manipulating someone for financial gain, control, or theft of assets, such as withholding money, stealing funds, or coercing financial decisions. We also have discrimination, and this is the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. We also have discrimination based on someone's religion, ethnic background, or disability. It includes isolation and making tribal or sexist remarks. Adult at risk. This is someone who is older than 18 years old who requires extra care and support due to either their gender or sexual identity, disabilities that are physical, mental, or emotional, or who cannot reasonably protect his, her, or their self from abuse, harm, and or exploitation. Then we have child or children, and they are defined by the UN Convention of the Rights of the Child, in short UNCRC, as being individuals under the age of 18 years of age. So this is the definition by the UNCRC. However, it's important to note that in some jurisdictions, a child is considered to be can be considered to be of 16 years of age and below. However, when it comes to safeguarding, the general rule or the principle that has been carried is that a child has to be under the age of 18. So it's irrespective of whatever national laws provide. Um, According to safeguarding and in the safeguarding realm, a child has to be of 18 and below, a person of 18 years and below. So mistaken belief in the age of a child is not a defense for abuse. Then we move on. There is neglect, and this is the persistent failure to meet a child, adolescent, or adult at risk's basic physical or psychological needs, and is likely to result in the serious impairment of his or her health or development. Some examples include failure to provide adequate food, clothing, and shelter, failure to protect them from physical or psychological harm, or danger, failure to ensure adequate supervision, including the use of inadequate caregivers, or failure to ensure access to appropriate medical care or treatment as a result of carelessness, indifference, or unwillingness. Then we have harassment, and this means engaging in unwarranted or unwanted conduct which has the purpose or effect of either violating another person's dignity or creating an intimidating, hostile, degrading, humiliating, or offensive environment for another person. Harassing conduct may include offensive jokes, slurs, name calling, physical assault or threats, intimidation, ridicule, insults, offensive pictures, and more. Then we have what I think should be the last definition, which is professional ethics. And these are the principles that govern behavior in a business environment, such as honesty, transparency, accountability, confidentiality, objectivity, respect, obedience to the law, and loyalty. This refers to how a person acts towards colleagues as well as members of the communities and organizations we engage with. So, having come to the end of the definition section and having defined what safeguarding is, you may be asking yourself, why am I here for this session on safeguarding, or why is it important to me? There are two main reasons why safeguarding is important. One, it's a moral obligation on your part as an individual and also as part of an organization to withhold these principles that are against harm, abuse, and neglect. Secondly, because of the nature of safeguarding, things like abuse, things like harassment, things like financial impropriety, they have legal backing, or they do have sanctions when it comes to penalties. So it's provided by the law in most jurisdictions. So, for example, if I was to take a simple example of sexual harassment in terms of rape or molestation, that is something that most jurisdictions have provided for in their laws. It could be their criminal acts or penal codes. They have that, and they usually have either jail term that is attached to it. So when it comes to safeguarding, you're obligated on a moral and personal perspective and also a legal perspective to uphold these principles. So I'm going to now look at the brief history on the evolution of safeguarding and how it came to be. So safeguarding has been there for decades, if I can say that. However, when it comes to the development world, or I would say the nonprofit um, areas of and development organizations, safeguarding became a key issue around the early 2000s. So, for one, most people who work in the nonprofit world, or we could call it the development sector, have a key obligation to step in and assist ailing communities or communities that are disadvantaged in one way or another. So in 2002, a report detailed sexual abuse and exploitation of refugees by aid workers in West Africa. It became known as the West Africa Food for Sex Scandal, and this triggered a major response across the aid sector. The UN Secretary General issued a bulletin on special measures for the protection from sexual exploitation and abuse. So I've taken the extra step to remove some key information from this because one, these are things that pertain to other organizations, and in as much as they happened, we don't want to paint them in bad light. However, if you do a quick search, you'll be able to find more details about this case. And you can imagine that this was an organization that was in charge or put in place to assist people in need. In this case, these are refugees, and refugees in this case would be vulnerable persons. They would fall under the ambit of vulnerable persons. So having the responsibility to take care of these refugees, the people within working in this organization did the opposite. There was food for sex scandal. So basically, refugees had were coerced into engaging in sexual relations with some of these aid workers in order to get food. So once the UN was aware of this, they set up a task force on the protection from sexual exploitation and abuse, and a group of child-focused NGOs also established the Keeping Children Safe Coalition. Now it's known as Keeping Children Safe. And the coalition came up with a set of standards and tools to safeguard children from all forms of harm, including sexual exploitation and abuse. So that was around the early 2000s. Then again in 2018, yet another scandal broke out, and it was equally as huge. So under the 2018 one, there's a sexual exploitation and misconduct that was covered in the media, and it prompted a review of safeguarding policies, practice, culture, and leadership on these issues. The 2018 case was quite significant because it was a very well-known, renowned international organization. It was receiving donations from the public, from key governments, and how this scandal was came to light was through a newspaper. So everything was calm, and one day the headline was that this organization has done this and this. So it was quite a scandal because this organization had gone in to assist people who had undergone quite a tragic moment. There was a hurricane that had occurred in the moment, and they'd been sent to this area to, provide relief, assist the people as they figure out what next after the hurricane. At the same time, in 2018, when this scandal was going on, the Me Too movement had also come up, and this was highlighting women's experiences of sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment at the workplace. So, ever since then, organizations have particularly increased their focus on listening to the survivors and applying the survivor centered principles to safeguarding. Another thing that I should mention regarding the Me Too movement and the last scandal that happened in 2018 is that a lot of funding organizations and governments became very strict on who they're giving their money to, because it's not about what you're doing to help the population or whatever it is your mission and vision is for your organization. You also have to look at how you're doing it. So that became very crucial. And for most donors, for most governments, before they are able to fund you, before they make the decision to fund you, they have to look at whether you're upholding safeguarding as an institution, if you have the necessary and required policies in place, if you have people who are tasked with ensuring safeguarding in organizations is upheld. So I'm going to take a quick look at the legal framework surrounding safeguarding. So I will start by saying every jurisdiction, every country have their own safeguarding laws. They might not be called safeguarding, they may fall under different titles because remember we talked about the different types of harm, abuse, or exploitation. So anything to do with sexual orientation or sexual offenses, anything to do with criminal offenses that fall under safeguarding, will be fast will be catered for under the national laws. And because I am not at liberty to know every person's, for those who have joined this webinar, I don't know everyone's national laws on safeguarding. I will just focus on the global standards for now. So the first one is the Interagency Standing Committee, Minimum Operating Standards for Protection from Sexual Exploitation and Abuse by Own Personnel. So this is for UN and non-UN staff, and it's the most used standard on the protection from sexual exploitation and abuse. It sets out 8 minimum operating standards with corresponding key indicators for each. The second standard is called DARC Recommendation in Ending Sexual Exploitation, Abuse, and Harassment in Development, Cooperation, and Humanitarian Assistance. While the OECD DARC recommendations are not legally binding, they are highly influential as they represent strong political commitment to the principles and policy recommendations they contain on behalf of the DARC members. So for the DARC recommendation, it also sets out 6 pillars on prevention and response. Then we have the third one, Core Humanitarian Standard on Quality and Accountability. And this is a voluntary and measurable standard. The Core Humanitarian Standard describes essential elements of principled, accountable, and high-quality humanitarian aid. It draws together key elements of existing humanitarian standards and commitments. It also contains a statement of humanitarian organizations' commitments, and they are 9. You can find all this on the internet, or if you do require us to provide them, we can do so as we're sharing the material. Then we have the Keeping Children Safe International Child Safeguarding Standards. Remember, this was developed in the early 2000s when the first incident on safeguarding occurred in West Africa. So, yes, Dana?
Sorry for interrupting.
No.
The people are requesting that you can speak louder.
Okay.
I think you're not audible, yeah.
All right. Sure thing. Thank you. Is this better?
You
Yes.
can put, okay. Thumbs up. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Right. Let me try also and increase the volume on my laptop. Okay. So the other global standard is the Keeping Children Safe or International Child Safeguarding Standards. And this was developed in 2002 by a coalition of humanitarian and development agencies. It reaffirms the do no harm principle, which is organizations have the responsibility to minimize the harm that they may do as a result of their activities. Then we have the International Labour Organization Convention on Violence and Harassment in the Workplace, in short known as the ILO Convention. And this is the first international treaty to recognize the right of everyone to a world of work free from violence and harassment, including gender-based violence and harassment. It was adopted in 2019 by the International Labour Conference of the International Labour Organization and entered into force in June 2021. The convention represents a historic opportunity to shape a future of work based on dignity and respect for all. So we're going to now move on to the safeguarding principles, and there are 6 of them. The first being empowerment, and this principle provides that we ensure people are supported and encouraged to make their own decisions and informed consent. So this would speak to, for example, where you're conducting research, and I know you're also, for the researchers who are attending, you're also guided by your research ethics. And I know one of the key things is having informed consent. So under this, we have people are encouraged to ensure that they make their own decisions, and informed consent has to be acquired. The second principle is prevention, and prevention provides for taking any action before harm develops in the first place. So a key element under safeguarding is to ensure that you catch whatever incident it is before it happens. Because of the sensitive nature of safeguarding, because of the implications and the impact of safeguarding that it has on not only the people who are the victims, but also the organization, it's important for you to work towards not having any safeguarding issues occurring rather than having to deal with handling safeguarding issues. So prevention is a key principle, and it is highly recommended that before you, instead of acting to eliminating a safeguarding incident, it's better to work at preventing it. And later on, we'll look at how to do that. The third principle is proportionality, and this is ensuring that you apply preventative measures. That is sort of tied to the second principle. And the fourth one is protection, supporting and representing those in the greatest needs. So because these principles were created with the underlying issues were on abuse with regards to of a sexual nature, and because this happened mostly, as we mentioned earlier, in 2002 and 2018. They happened in areas that required a lot of assistance at the moment, at that time, and the victims of the sexual nature of the crimes that were committed required to get assistance as fast as possible. So protection is one of the key principles under safeguarding, and under protection, a key element is ensuring that you focus on the victim and or the survivor, and provide all care that you can at the moment. So the fifth principle is partnership. So under partnership, we're encouraged to partner with local agencies and organizations to prevent, recognize, and report suspected incidents of neglect, harm, or abuse. So when we talk about local agencies, we're talking about police force. We're talking about social companies or social agencies that can assist, including hospitals, because once a safeguarding incident has occurred, you might need to take someone to hospital, someone who's suffered any kind of harm and needs medical treatment. So it's encouraged to partner with these different people so that one, you also are mitigating the effects of the incident and ensuring that you protect the victims or survivors. And lastly, we have accountability, being transparent and accountable for all the decisions and the changes that are made. So a key element when the 2018 and 2002 incidents happened is that there was no accountability from the organizations, or rather, there was little accountability from these organizations. And when the tone at the top is not loud on maintaining safeguarding or upholding safeguarding principles, then it obviously will go to the rest of the organization. So, one of the key things that has arisen from safeguarding is that management is to be held accountable, one, and also they have to be transparent on what occurs or on their measures of safeguarding. So, if at all an organization has an incident of safeguarding, one of the key things to do is once they have gone through the investigation process, is to also let the board know, or the board of trustees, that these are the safeguarding issues we're dealing with. This is how we dealt with them, and this is what we plan to do in the future. So this helps with one, um, having a track record of what kind of safeguarding incidents are happening, how best to maneuver or manage them, and also it gives the organization a good reputation because they are seen to be on top of their core values. So we'll go to the 5 R's of safeguarding, and this is what is expected um, for you to know at the back of your mind as whatever you're doing while you're in your organizations, while you're conducting your research, while you're collecting data. What are the 5 R's that you should keep in mind? Number one is to recognize, and you should be able to recognize behavior that may indicate abuse, and which may include direct disclosure. So, I know under the mental health data prize, there won't be much data collection, but I know there will be interactions with people who have lived experiences. So while you're conducting these interactions, or within the process of interacting with these people, you should be alert enough to recognize any change in behavior that you may consider to be under the realm of safeguarding. Secondly, is to respond. So after you've recognized, you just don't leave it at that. You need to respond, and respond basically means positively reassuring the person that they have done the right thing in either raising the issue and accepting what they say without judgment. Thirdly, there's recording, and it is important to record what has been said as accurately as possible. For most organizations, they have an incident form, reporting form, and it's good to put in what you've gotten from the victim, the survivor, or the person who's reporting to you, whatever safeguarding issue this is. Then we have report. Reporting is a key aspect because remember, as you're looking at safeguarding, you don't have the mandate to ensure or to investigate. So reporting plays a crucial role because you report this to either your supervisor or your safeguarding manager or someone in the higher up, someone who can be able to take this matter, investigate it, and find a solution to it. So once you've reported, the safeguarding manager or the supervisor then can look into what the next course of action should be. Then the last step is to refer, and here the safeguarding lead, it could be the manager or a supervisor or a director in your organization, can decide to either refer the complaint Remember, we said some safeguarding issues are also legal issues. So you might be required to report to the police or any other authority as per the law. Right. So before I go to the next slide, which is on creating a culture of safeguarding, Diana, I don't know if we have any questions in the chat that you can highlight for me.
We have a few hands raised. We don't have any question on the chat, so probably I can let one person to go.
Okay.
Bala Hari.
You moderate because I can't see.
Okay, fine.
Thanks.
Bala Hari, you can unmute and ask your question. Bala, are you there?
I'm very sorry. The hands up was a mistake. I'm so sorry.
No problem. Okay, we have Dr. Hewitt. Dr. Hewitt, are you there? You can unmute and ask your question. Okay. We have Sidambile. Sidambile? Okay. Okay, fine. I think maybe the hands were raised mistakenly. I think we can.
So there's one question in Q&A.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay. And Nireen is asking, where do you find a safeguarding officer in a university context?
Okay. Is that the question that was in the Q&A?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So where do you find a safeguarding officer within?
Within a university context.
Okay. All right. Is there any other, or do I just go ahead and respond to that?
Yeah, you can just respond to that for now.
Okay, great. So within any organization, let me not talk about a university in particular. Within any organization or entity, there should be a safeguarding officer or manager. Actually, it should be a manager or someone who is in charge of safeguarding. And this also is a creation from management or from the organization's goals. So it is, I wouldn't say it is something that just occurs. You have to make an effort to having a safeguarding office, department, or even a few people who are in charge of safeguarding. And if you don't have one, then that is something you can actually advise your management to look into because of how important it is. I hope I've answered that well enough.
There's another. Yes, there's another question from Yinka. She's asking, what do we do in a situation where the rape victim does not want the case to be reported or the perpetrator to be exposed? What should the researcher do?
Okay, so I will go back to what your laws provide for. One, I will start by saying that for a rape victim, they need to get attention and quick attention at that. So you need to first take them to hospital. And one of the key things I know happens when you take someone to hospital, they will require you to report that to the police. So sometimes your hands are tied. And remember, you are safeguarding or you're protecting the well being of this person. They are probably afraid to let let the perpetrator go through any adverse punishment because they are the victim. You know, they have just gone through a traumatic experience and are probably still not being able to figure out what's going on, or they're scared. So it's your responsibility, one, to ensure that they have access to care and immediate care. They could also need counseling in as much as they don't want the perpetrator to be known. Counseling would help them, not just in the moment, but also lifelong, because some traumatic experiences can manifest for much longer. Yeah, over. Any other question?
Just okay. There's another question. What is the standard qualification or qualities for a safeguarding officer?
Okay. I wouldn't say that it's not like a profession where there are qualifications, academic, professional. But what I would say is that there are lots of upcoming courses on safeguarding. Um, Another key thing is we have these global standards that have provided a framework for what is the bare minimum. So, for example, I will use APHRC to explain how safeguarding is handled. The top responsible person or persons or group is the board of directors, and the board of directors monitors our safeguarding. How do they do that? One, we have a policy in place, so they ensure that this policy is adhered to and that all safeguarding matters are reported to them by management. So the second line of defense is management, and management also have the role of ensuring implementation and monitoring of the policy. So because management is quite a large group, it's difficult to have specific roles for the entire management group. Then we have now a safeguarding manager, and that is one person who's solely responsible for all safeguarding incidents. And after the safeguarding manager, now we have the safeguarding officer, which is who is responsible of also safeguarding matters and assists the safeguarding manager in conducting his or her duties. Then we also have at APHRC a safeguarding committee. And basically, what that helps with is one, which is what we're about to go to in the next slide, having a culture of safeguarding and investigating any reports that are made. So the fact that we have created this structure, it assists in having sort of a framework within the organization, and it also encourages the culture of safeguarding and people being able to talk about safeguarding issues, not in hushed tones but loud enough, and ensuring that the organization is protected. I hope I have answered your question.
Okay. She has said thank you. Yes, you've answered. So the last one. How do you ensure protection of the whistleblower in a small organization setting?
Okay. I like your questions. And I think you're also preempting some of the things I'm going to talk about, but it's great that you've raised them. So, protection of a whistleblower is very important. And because one of the key types of harassment, we didn't go very deep into the types of harassment or types of abuse, but one of the different types of harassment is retaliation harassment. And retaliation harassment happens where someone reports, a whistleblower makes a report, right? And the person who the report is made about then comes and attacks the person who made the report. That's retaliation. And so it's the same thing. So I will try and give examples to make it easier for you to sort of be able to have this also in place for your organization. What we do at EPHRC is we have an online reporting platform that has full anonymity. So you can log into that, it's called Ethics Point. You log into that platform and you're able to make an anonymous report. So that way your identity will not be known. Although I wouldn't say it's foolproof because in some instances, depending on what the situation is, you could have been the only person and probably the perpetrator knows you're the only person who witnessed it or who's aware. So in that case, it might not work for you. But what works in that case, in case you're being harassed, retaliated against, is having procedures within your organization. So, for example, at APHRC, retaliation harassment is one of the types of harassments that is listed in our safeguarding policy. And if you're found to have been a perpetrator of retaliation against another employee who made a report, then you will be subject to disciplinary action. So that can include termination of employment or suspension. I hope that's helpful. Diana, if you can let me know if that's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. We can proceed. Then we'll take other questions after.
Okay, great. So, how do we create a culture of safeguarding within our organizations? There are four key areas that we need to look at. Number one is policy, and this is where your organization comes up with standards and policies that highlight safeguarding as a core value. This can be through development of safeguarding policies, codes of conduct. Under safeguarding policies, you can have quite a number. For example, at APHRC, we have 6 safeguarding policies. We have a safeguarding policy in itself. We have a policy with working with people at risk. We have the conflict of interest policy. We have a whistleblowing policy. Um, we also have a policy on harassment. So you can decide how to structure your policies. It could be one, it could be more than one, so long as they touch on all safeguarding issues, that is with regards to adults at risk, with regards to children, and any other vulnerable people. And it's also important to align them with international standards and national laws. Remember the global standards that we went through. So it's good to use that as a guide. Those are what are currently being used. And even at APHRC, I would say we followed the international standards as well as national laws. Secondly, we have people. In as much as they have policies and procedures, they're not enough to ensure safeguarding is fully complied with. So, in order to create a safe organization, what else do you need to look at? Look at your organization's culture and leadership. And this is important for effective safeguarding. For one, leaders should encompass the role of safeguarding in how they do their work, and they should also train their staff members and have the mandate to update the safeguarding manager or leads on any incidents. Thirdly, we have processes and procedures, and this is where we talk about the whistleblowing process or reporting mechanisms. So you should first have reporting mechanisms that are available to all people within the organization and third parties as well. The processes and procedures should have clear case management processes and investigations that are highly confidential due to the nature of safeguarding. And lastly, we have accountability, and it is important to have clear ways of governing safeguarding and holding the organization accountable for safeguarding. Regular management reporting on safeguarding performance and boards reviewing this performance is essential for accountability. All right, so we're going to now look at risk management while focusing on safeguarding. So there's a quote there at the bottom left that states risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. And that is Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in this world. And basically, what he's saying is that you need, risk does not operate in a vacuum. You need to have objectives. And from these objectives, then the risks emanate from them. So, with regards to safeguarding, you have to look at what it is you're doing, what activities are you undertaking. Then you employ the risk management or risk management tool, which is the picture on your right. So the first thing is to identify the risks. However, before you identify the risk, you need to know what it is you're doing. So what activity are you doing? That is not included in this because the picture on the right is from a risk management, organizational risk. But under organizational risks, one of the key risks is safeguarding risk, which has of late become quite significant and key for many organizations. So I would ask, for example, for this team, what is your goal? What is your purpose when it comes to whatever it is, whatever goal you're working towards? So, for example, I'll go back to the example of using, of engaging with people with lived experiences, right? So that is your objective, to communicate with them, to get more information with regards to mental health. So from interacting with these people with lived experiences, that being your objective, what risks will emanate from that? So once you identify the risk, the next thing is to analyze. So for example, under the analysis section, if the people you're talking to are under the age of 18, that means they're children. What are some of the things you need to put in place before you engage with children? Do you have that in place? So that is what you do under step 2. You analyze the risk. Then you evaluate or rank the risk. So if you're talking to children, are you talking to them without a guardian present? Will the guardian be present? So those are some of the ways you can evaluate. You could also have consent forms that are signed by the guardian. Those are just some of the ways of evaluating or ranking the risk. Then number 4 is the risk treatment. And treatment can be in a number of ways. One, you can decide to proceed as is, that is accepting the risk. Number 2, you can decide to transfer the risk. So perhaps you decide, instead of dealing directly with children, I'll have someone else talk to them, someone who probably is has the mandate of talking to children directly without me being in the room, or like a social worker. So you can decide to do that, and that's transferring the risk, or you can avoid. Although if you avoid completely, then you might not be able to meet your objectives. And then lastly is to monitor and review the risk. So the thing with risk, generally, not just about safeguarding risks, is that they change. So something that is a risk for you now may not be a risk for you in the next maybe 3-4 months, 6 months, maybe because you have treated the risk, or maybe it's no longer existing. So you have to keep on monitoring and reviewing. In the same breath, some risks can take a higher, I want to say, they can change their rating. So something that you considered was low risk in your period of analysis can end up being a higher risk later. So you need to consistently monitor, review the risks, and apply the proper treatment for you to manage the risk. So you might be asking, why is this important? Why is risk management important under safeguarding? For one, when you're dealing with donors and funders, And in this case, for those who are going to apply for this prize, that will be the Welcome Trust and APHRC. One of the things we're going to look at is, do you have safeguarding policies in place? Is there a safeguarding culture in place? Do you manage the safeguarding risks that probably emanate from your work? And how is that dealt with? So that is, apart from looking at your technical proposal, apart from looking from your application, these are some of the due diligence assessments that you'll conduct. And it's good for you to have this in place. In case you haven't yet, you can start now this time, or you can sensitize your organization even if you're not planning to apply for the prize. This is something you can work towards. Remember, we said that safeguarding is a moral and legal obligation. So in the long run, it will be beneficial to you and your organization. Things like having a whistleblowing process and reporting systems in place, very key in today's environment, and helping you also be able to assess what kind of safeguarding incidents happen in your organization and with when you're dealing with outsiders as well. So in summary, um, safeguarding is about protection. You need to protect people, and especially people who are vulnerable, who are at a risk because either of their gender, either of their sexual orientation, either of their age, all these things that make them not able to speak for themselves, or just to address any exploitation, any harm that happens. Safeguarding also happens whether you're in the organization or you're outside. So once you clock out at 5 p.m., you're still supposed to adhere to your safeguarding um, processes, procedures, and principles. It's very important because for most of these cases that we went through earlier, the people from these organizations were not committing these atrocities during the time of their work. And this is one of the defenses they try to bring up. They try to say, oh, I was doing this after work. I had an arrangement, or I had a relationship. It doesn't work that way, because remember, sometimes you're at a higher advantage, or you have power over the person that is the victim of safeguarding. So it's important to always uphold these principles, whether you're at work or not at work. Then, secondly, organizations need to foster or create a culture of respect and accountability. And this is done, one, by ensuring the tone at the top is very clear on what is encouraged and what is allowed within the organization. So by doing this, you have a vulnerable workplace, but one also that is open to hearing any reports that come up. Thirdly, we need to regularly assess the safeguarding standards, look at the safeguarding risks, and create and monitor organization-wide safeguarding plans. And lastly, addressing safeguarding incidents. Organizations need accessible systems that all staff, associates, and people in communities can access. So safeguarding is a key priority at APHRC and also at Welcome, and that is also the reason why we had this capacity building exercise to let you know that in as much as you're working towards the project, it's a key element of being awarded, or just in your day-to-day lives as well. Safeguarding is very important, and it's crucial to always let someone know, let your supervisor know, let your director know, let your anyone report. If you see something and don't expose it, then you continue to be an enabler. So that is the end of my presentation. I have placed my email address at the bottom, sorry, in case you need to communicate with me with regards to safeguarding or find out more. And also just to mention that on our website, we do have a whistle blowing platform. So in case anything occurs that you need to report, you're open to do so, and it's anonymous. Thank you so much. I will stop presenting and go back to the session now.
Okay, thank you so much, Phyllis, for such a lovely presentation. I bet so many people have learned a lot, even I have learned a lot. So probably we can take a few questions from the Q&A. And if anyone has a question, you can raise your hands. Then we'll be able to tackle the question. So this one was asked, in a case of a repeat defilement where there is no evidence, how can a researcher be protected as a whistleblower? Would you like me to take all the question or would you like to answer as I go?
Let me answer as I go.
Okay.
So, yeah, could you just come again? In case of a repeat defilement?
Where there is no evidence, how can a researcher be protected as the whistleblower?
Okay. So when you say, oh, I wish the person could unmute and talk, because I'm wondering how is there no evidence? But I will start by saying this. As a researcher, your responsibility is to report. Your responsibility is not to investigate, it's not to do anything else, but to report. So once you report, then either your safeguarding lead, or in this case, if you're reporting to the police, they will take further action. Um, so that is a key element for you to report and not do anything else, unless you're requested to. But you should not be, you are not expected to investigate or do anything. That should be the role of someone else. I hope that answers you. If it's not clear, you can just unmute.
Yeah, you can raise your hands, then we can unmute you if at all you want further clarification. Okay, so I can proceed. How do you deal with safeguarding issues for people with serious mental health condition who might require support to report an issue or even issue of giving consent, for example, in a research project?
Okay. I would say one of the key things that you can do is have partnerships. And I think I mentioned this. Have partnerships with organizations that can step in and help these people. Remember, you are working in your organization that's probably dealing with something totally different. So you don't even have the capacity to assist these people, but you have the moral obligation to do so. So what you do is enter into partnership agreements with certain organizations that can assist. Even hospitals are usually part of these arrangements. And what this helps with, you can now be able to refer the person, or once an incident occurs, you alert them and they're able to take it up. I hope that helps.
Okay. Thank you for that. Another one is asking, how can someone manage risk of identity exposure in the case of homeless children?
Come again?
How can someone manage risk of identity exposure in the case of homeless children?
Identity exposure.
Mm.
I'm not sure I understand that. I would require more information. Kindly type some more to elaborate on that. Whoever asked the question.
Okay. As
Yeah.
the person is typing, would you recommend a tool for risk management? Is there any recommended tool for risk management?
Um, is there a recommended tool? I would say it depends with what organization that you work in. So, for example, at TPHRC, we have a tool that is, I would say, used by nonprofits. If you're in a university, I would imagine they use different tools. But regardless, you will have the main elements of risk management. So the first thing being, you have to identify what your objectives are. After you identify your objectives, you identify the risks that may emanate from the objectives. Then you proceed to analyze, evaluate, treat the risk, and monitor. So those key steps are present in all risk management tools, but how you create your tool is dependent on the organization and the area that you're in.
Okay. Let me give one person to speak, then we can go back to Q&A. So
Okay.
Jemima, Jemima, your hand is raised. You can unmute and ask your question. Jemima, are you there? Jemima, are you there?
Maybe they're unable to speak.
I've seen she's unmuted.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Perhaps you can type in the Q&A if you're unable
Yes.
to, because we can't hear you, Jemima.
Okay. From the Q&A, maybe I can continue as we wait for Jemima. How can safeguarding be used to prevent sexual harassment or rape from happening at all?
Sorry, there's someone who's talking.
Okay, sorry about that.
Go ahead.
Just a minute. Okay. How can safeguarding be used to prevent sexual harassment or rape from happening at all?
So we talked about one of the key elements and principles of safeguarding being to prevent. The aim is, okay, let me start by saying this. You cannot control everything that happens, right? But what you can do is put in place measures and put in place processes that sort of hinder these things. So depending, again, this also depends on what sector you're dealing with, what organization you're in, because some are more they're more open to having these safeguarding issues happening. So let me start by saying, do you have policies in place? Are these policies communicated? Do people understand them? Is the management in support of ensuring safeguarding is something that is openly discussed, is well managed and dealt with? Is the board also having a role, playing a part in ensuring these safeguarding issues are dealt with? So these are some of the things that you need to look at. But you can't say that you're foolproof, like now we're good, we will not have any safeguarding issues. That's not possible, feasible, or realistic. So all you can do is put in certain measures to ensure that you avoid such things. So I don't know what organization you're from, but I would ask, do you have a policy, say for example, on sexual harassment or harassment? Do you have a code of conduct? Because without a code of conduct, then people won't know how to act or behave. And the thing with people, behavior is very subjective. Someone might think groping someone is appropriate, while someone else may definitely know it's not. So it all boils down to some of the processes, procedures you have in place, and not just having them in place, but also having leadership back up what is already written down in terms of policies, and also engaging the staff and communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. There's a Crispin Okello. Your hand is up. Maybe you can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Many thanks, Diana, and thank you so much, Phyllis, for this fantastic presentation. Really, I am so Delighted to be part of the attendees today. One of the things that really stands out for me today is the issue of an organization having a safeguarding policy, the safeguarding policy in place in the first place. And so, like Child Space Organization, my name is Crispin Okelo. I'm the ED here in Child Space Organization, and we got our safeguarding policy. The policy we were helped by keeping children safe. This keeping children safe. I know you've heard of it. Is in the UK. And we've come up with, we now have a guiding policy, but it's a progressive document, you need to be updated all the time. You need to be reviewed as we move forward. Sometimes we forget. So at what time do you think we should be in a position to maybe have maybe standardized policy that is cross-cutting? Because like, for example, the level where we are at ChildSpace in that particular network, of keeping children safe, we are at the, I think, is it entry level or something? Because they have the levels and then this gold level where now you have everything in that policy. So how can whatever you're talking about in terms of policy, in terms of safeguarding policy, be able, how can you be able to share with us probably the standard one so that we are able to probably convene some session with our team members and make it progressive as we move on based on the current occurrences. So my question is, are you in a position to help us be able to upgrade our current child safeguarding policy that we have in place as Child Space Organization? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Crispin. So what I will say is this. The process of updating this policy is never ending. And at PHRC, we revise our policies every 3 years. That is the general rule. But in case we need to do so because of any policy changes, of any other change that we need to, now include in our policies, then we have to review it. So I wouldn't say there's one size fits all. And given also the fact that we live in a world where things are changing pretty much every day, you have to always keep on top of these issues. And one of the key things I talked about was having a safeguarding lead or person who is responsible for safeguarding. And these are one of the things that they are tasked with, ensuring that they keep up with the changing legislation. It could be change in global trends regarding safeguarding. So I would recommend that you do that. Have someone who is a designated safeguarding lead. Then also don't get tired of updating your policies because things are changing every now and then. You can also borrow from what we've done as a PHRC. Our policies are on our website and you can download them. I mentioned we have 6 of them with regards to safeguarding only, but we have a lot of other policies all available on the website. So you can just go there, download. You can also download from other organizations because most organizations put up their safeguarding policies. These are one of the things that when donors or funders are undertaking their due diligence checks, they'll want to see whether you have these things in place. So you can go to other organizations, download their policies, borrow from that. You can also borrow from the global standards frameworks that I mentioned earlier. You can never go wrong with those. So yeah, I think I would advise you to just keep up the good work, and it's good to know that you even have something in place already. That's very commendable.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Phyllis. I've already seen it that the next review for the APHRC policy, safeguarding policy, is actually set to be on November 26th. Many, many thanks. I have it on my desk already as we're speaking. Many, many thanks. I'm really interested. God bless. Bless.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't know whether you want to take a few more or maybe we can on the Q&A.
Yeah, I see Jemima is back. Maybe she can speak.
Jemima, are you there? Okay, I think maybe it was raised by mistake.
Okay.
Yeah. Perhaps you can choose any from the Q&A section. Would you like us to proceed, or maybe we can take these questions and
Yeah, sure. I don't know where we had stopped at. Do you mind just
It's
reading the
okay.
questions?
It's okay. Risk.
Thank you. Okay.
What happens in the perpetrator is the safeguarding officer? Who do you report to, especially at organization level? Or is it okay to have two separate officers handling matters of safeguard?
Okay, thank you for that question. Very relevant and something that can actually happen. So I will start by giving an example of what happens at APHRC. We have different levels of safeguarding. So I started by saying we have the board that has the general and overall oversight, followed by ban management, followed by safeguarding manager, and then we have the others. So for example, and I am a safeguarding officer, right? So if I am the perpetrator of either abuse, harm, or exploitation of any kind, no one no one can come and report to me because I'm the one who's perpetrated whatever that is, the safeguarding issue is. So what happens? The person can either go through the safeguarding manager, go through their own supervisor, or any other director. So with having such a process helps because you don't necessarily have to go to one person to report. I also mentioned we have an online reporting site, and that online reporting site is managed by key people who get those reports and forward them. Depending on who the perpetrator is, they are able to ascertain, okay, this can go to the safeguarding manager. If the safeguarding manager, for example, is the one being accused, it cannot go to him, it will go to the executive director or the board. So there are different levels. I think at APHRC, that is something that we have managed to do very well. And also, if, for example, because we have a safeguarding committee, if someone of the committee is the perpetrator, then that means the safeguarding committee cannot sit at all. What happens is we get an external private investigator to undertake the investigation and come up with a report and share it. So those are some of the ways we handle it that I would also encourage you to do the same. So it's better to have a broad way of reporting and different ways, because if you only have one person you report to, then the chances of not everything being reported could be quite a number. Thank
you
you.
for that. There's a guy who had asked about homeless children. So we had mentioned, yeah. So the question is, how can we safeguard or protect homeless children during research or as research participants? How can we safeguard the homeless children?
Okay. All right. I'll just go back to what I'd mentioned earlier about partnering with institutions that such issues are their core mission and vision. So, for example, homeless children. I know there are quite a number of organizations that deal with rehabilitating children. So you can partner with those institutions. I know there's also government agencies that deal with homeless children. So those are the kind of people you should report to. Remember, in as much as you're trying to ensure safeguarding does not occur, there's only so much you can do. But for you, reporting is the key thing to do. Once you report, you have made a very significant step towards prevention and towards curtailing in case the safeguarding incident is already occurring. You've made a very great step in making sure it stops. So I would say reporting, and reporting would go would start from either internally and then go to external authorities or organizations. So I would say report, 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 And yeah, that is one of the key ways we can be able to assist.
Okay, thank you. I hope the person has asked you've been answered. If not, you can just raise your hands, then I'll be able to unmute you. There's a person who has asked, kindly highlight on the steps of investigating a safeguarding matter. I don't know whether you have talked about this.
So no, I did not go through the investigation process. I wanted this session to be not to be very detailed because it would have been quite long. But also I wanted to highlight the key things that go into safeguarding. So when it comes to the process for reporting, I will start from the report has already been received. So depending on what kind of safeguarding issue it is, say for example, it's one of a sexual nature, you have to tend to the victim with immediate effect. So in that case, you first make sure, is the victim okay? Have they received any medical treatment? If they need any, do they need counseling? So after that, once you figure out whether or not the victim is okay and that is out of the way, the next thing now is to launch the investigation. So I'm going to keep on going back to what we do at APHRC because that's what I know. So at APHRC, once a report is received, it has to be acted on within 3 days. In those 3 days, luckily we have a committee already in place. So the committee will immediately sit and start the investigation process. Once again, it depends with what kind of report it is. Say, for example, it's a report on financial abuse. Someone is probably embezzling funds. So that one you need to find the paperwork. Where is the paperwork to support that this is happening? You need to get witness statements. You need to call them in as fast as possible. Also, the thing with safeguarding reports or investigations is you need to conduct them very fast. Remember, the more time passes, the less information you have and the less people's memories are fresh. So you need to get enough information in as quick as possible. So with at APHRC, again, we get everything we need to support the report. I would say within 7 to 14 days maximum. And once you do that, a key element under safeguarding is to let the victim and the perpetrator know of the outcome. So once the investigations have concluded, you have to let the perpetrator know this is what, first, this is the report we received. We undertook this investigation and this is what came out of it. And for the victim, you inform them, yes, we've received your report, we are acting on it, and we will let you know the outcome. And what this helps with is transparency. So it's a very key process in safeguarding. Then after that, what you do is you monitor and you review. So, for example, you have the perpetrator and the victim working together in the same, let's say, office. If at all, it's a matter, it's a situation where it's a supervisor and a supervisee, you cannot let them work together. You have to remove one. So these are some of the things that were under monitoring and reviewing what you do. You cannot let them continue working together. So you either move one person, assuming that they have not been let go based on the safeguarding issue. So yeah, I would say that is the process that takes place. That is how we deal with it at APHRC. You can always customize your investigation process depending on what works best for you. I know some organizations where they fully rely on private investigators. Others only management deals with the investigation. So it differs from organization to organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Phyllis. I hope you've been answered. A person who asked, if at all you want follow up, you want to follow up on that, you can raise your hands and probably answer it. So I think the rest of the questions, we can answer them on the frequently asked question on our platform. So perhaps we can close at that. And do you have any final remarks?
Oh, are we done with the questions?
They're sort of related to what you had asked previously, what you'd answered previously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just quickly go through.
Yeah, probably can go through what
The
you.
Q&A, but in the meantime,
Yeah.
anyone can unmute or raise their hand if they have a burning question. Okay, there's a key one here from Gloria, and she asks, during the whistleblowing process, how do we ensure the well-being of the individuals whom the whistleblowing was made against? Oh, I think we answered that, right? Especially in cases where the whistleblowing was made from a point of malice. Okay, so Gloria, one of the key elements of safeguarding, and I would say whistleblowing in particular, is ensuring that whatever is being reported is true. And sometimes it's difficult to figure that out. But one of the key elements under safeguarding and investigations under safeguarding is that you need to have evidence. Evidence here takes almost the role it does in court. So you need supporting evidence, you need documents, you need everything that you can get to show that this is what occurred. And also you look at the statement of the victim, you also look at the statement of the perpetrator, and also any other supporting witnesses that who can corroborate to the accusations, right? So what happens during this process of investigation, which is usually very, very thorough, you will always find whether the report was made maliciously or not. And if it was, what happens is that person should be subjected to disciplinary action. Remember, this is also sort of a form of exploitation, because why would you make an untrue statement and tarnish someone's name? So that person who made the false report or made it maliciously, should be able to face disciplinary action. And at APHRC, that happens, or that is what is provided for in our policies. So I hope that answers you. James asked, in safeguarding, do we also protect the information or data, or only the physical part? Okay, I will try and answer this how I understand it. So when it comes to safeguarding and you have a case that's been presented to you, one of the key things is maintaining confidentiality. That is very key, because safeguarding usually mirrors on very sensitive issues. You need to, one, remember always the victim has to be protected at all costs, and their identity, whatever happened, needs to be kept under wraps. So that is why even having a designated lead helps. One person who can deal with the issue, can be able to assist the victim, can be able to undertake the investigations and report, while still maintaining confidentiality and ensuring that the victim is taken care of. So I would say this information, even when I say that you need to report to the board, as we do as a PHRC, we don't report with people's names, be it the victim, be it the perpetrator. Even the reports during investigations, they don't contain the names of the perpetrator or the victim. And that's one of the ways you try and protect the information that is contained when undertaking safeguarding investigations. So I hope that answers you. I will go to the
Phyllis?
next. Yes.
There's somebody who has raised their hands. Zainabu Drama.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All
Thank you.
right.
Presentation was very detailed and quite informative. Thank you very much for it. We really appreciate it. When you were talking about the question you were answering on how to determine, true, I think it was by glory of true or false accusations, and at the same time maintaining the victim's confidentiality. Because it can be a critical issue, especially at an institutional level. And I had an experience with this once. But just to share, one of the things that helped me was being open-minded and sometimes even requiring for you to have to listen to the alleged perpetrator, but still observing confidentiality in doing so by not disclosing what has been shared to you by the supposed victim. So this has really kind of helped in trying to establish the truth, and also sometimes just having the ear to listen with by letting the alleged victim lead in terms of reporting. Because for my workplace here in MRC, there's a reporting, bullying and harassment reporting system in place. I'm not sure about its effectiveness, but as someone who was supporting other individuals in that situation, I always ensure that the person knows that whatever you are saying has to be truthful, and that there is a reporting system that they can take up individually to report the matter. So sometimes can help you to gauge their level of honesty or integrity in terms of what they are reporting. But at the same time, this helps you to not judge them in case they are being really honest with the situation what they are reporting, because you just have to assume that they are being truthful, and then you try to establish the whole scenario by yourself without making them feel that, because that might cause them to kind of close off and not disclose to you everything that might be bothering them if they feel that you don't believe what you are saying. So anyways, in my own experience, this has helped. And thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that explanation on what happens. I think it's very helpful also to hear from others, on what is going on in the organizations. And from what you said, clearly, it's very important. One, maintain confidentiality, and treat the reporter with a lot of grace. Listen to them truthfully. Try to be very supportive in that moment. One, because we talked about it, one, creating that culture of openness and vulnerability, and ensuring that the organization also, other people in the organization are not scared to come forward. So thank you so much for that, Sainabu. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Thank you. Let me go back to the Q&A. There is a question from Jamin. He says, one of the principles of safeguarding is accountability. I wish to find out if this accountability is only from the organization or individual to the funder, or is it also given to the people or person being affected? So the thing with accountability, it is geared towards the organization itself and the higher levels within the organization. The reason for this is you need to hold someone accountable. From the word accountability, you need to hold someone accountable. So I'll go back to the example I used for the scandal that happened in 2018. What happened is the management actually knew about the sexual nature, what happened when they were providing relief to these survivors of the hurricane, and they knew who was responsible. And what they did is management kept it under wraps and slowly fired the people who are responsible, right? So when it was when it became a scandal, and it was the media that actually highlighted this, management were quick to say, no, we fired these people. But truly, they did not take accountability of it. They did not take the issue as seriously as they should have. So the thing with accountability goes to the higher ups, I would say, and it starts with management and it cascades to the rest of the people in the organization. So I hope that answers you. I'll go to Abdi. Most of the action which is against safeguarding will occur inside the home. So how can we manage or ensure the functionality of safeguarding? Abdi, I'm assuming you're saying that sometimes these things happen behind closed doors and it's difficult to figure out what is going on. And this goes on to speak to what we started with, which is observing. So you observe, and in case you suspect anything that's not okay, what you do is you report it to someone who can be able to do something, someone who is able to intervene. Remember, we said our role is not to investigate unless you're the safeguarding lead or manager. Your role is not to investigate whatever is going on, but to report. So who you report to is also very critical because you want to report and something happens. You're not just reporting for the sake of it. So it's important also to know who to report to. For example, I'm thinking about a community setting. Instead of going to the police, maybe what happens in that setting is that people talk to the chief first, or there is maybe a community advisor who the people within the society listen to. That's the person you should probably ask to investigate or to look more into the matter. So yeah, I would say that just report and try as much as possible to report to someone who is likely to help. Thank you. Diana, I don't know if there are other questions.
There's somebody who is asking you, how is the field like?
How is the field like?
Yeah.
Safeguarding. So
Yeah.
I'm not 100% a safeguarding officer. It's a role that I have. It's not all that I do. It's just one of the many things that I do. So, but I would say it's very interesting. It's an interesting field. It is quite empowering because you get to learn so much about what happens not only in your organization but also in other organizations, how they handle cases that come to them. Most people fear safeguarding issues, and I feel like that is a wrong way to go about it because you end up learning so much and being able to assist your organization to mitigate a lot in terms of risks and also to come up with policies that are strong enough. I will tell you one thing about APHRC. All our consultants, all our partners are expected to adhere to our safeguarding policies because in as much as us as APHRC are, have safeguarding policies and processes in place, we expect our anyone we come into contact with to do the same. And this will also be one of the key things we look at because as it is, Welcome expects us to have safeguarding policies, procedures in place, which we do. But also, we expect our partners and anyone we come into contact with to be aware of the same. So I would say it's a very interesting, very wide field. In case you want to become a safeguarding manager or lead, please go ahead. It's a very great field to be in. I know of very big organizations that have people who are specific, like only deal with safeguarding. So if you're looking into it, I would say please go ahead. Next question.
Someone is asking if at all you can provide a link where they can get safeguarding courses online.
Okay, I can do that after this, and then you can share it with them. Is that okay?
That's okay.
Right.
Someone is asking, is there any mechanism to control country performance on this regard? Sometimes the policy and what is in the ground doesn't match.
Just at the first sentence, I didn't quite get it.
Is there any mechanism to control country performance on this regard? I think in safeguarding issue, sometimes the policy and what is in the ground doesn't match.
Country performance.
Yeah.
That would be difficult. I would say probably organization, because at least that is something you're able to track. And I will say what we do at APHRC. So because we have to report to the board annually on any safeguarding issues and how we dealt with it, then you're able, one, because you're reporting to the board, you need to identify what kind of safeguarding it is, what controls are in place, how the investigations were undertaken, what actions emanated from the investigations. So that sort of creates a mechanism where you're able to track every safeguarding incident, and sort of you're able to look back year by year and say, okay, last year we had a lot of theft. This year it seems we've moved to bullying, so you're able to also figure out. And also, because safeguarding doesn't only happen at the office, it happens outside, you're also able to track the certain areas it happens. If for example, you're in the field a lot, what are some of the occurrences that are happening there? So I would say country might be difficult, but organization, there are ways that you're able to track, especially if you have a safeguarding lead who reports to the board, and usually is done via physical or written reports. Yeah, thank you. Following the example you have given, is embezzlement of funds a safeguarding issue? Yes, it is. And for APHRC, it falls under safeguarding because you're abusing financial resources. So it is a safeguarding issue. So is falsification of documents or reports or receipts. Yeah. Please, I would urge you to look at our policies. They're all on the website. You can download in case you need a starting point or to see how to even craft yours. You're open to borrow from ours. So Diana, I don't know if there's any other question.
Yeah, I think we've covered all of them.
Mhm.
From my end, I think we've covered all of them.
Great. Okay.
Yes.
So I think we can end the session now, given that there are no more questions. I'm so glad to have been part of this process of taking you through the safeguarding presentation. Capacity building is something that is becoming important in very many areas. And the fact that this team decided safeguarding was one of the key issues that needs to be highlighted is something that makes me very happy. I think sometimes we do focus too much on what we need to get done and forget how we need to get things done. So I want to end by saying let's all strive to protect people who are vulnerable, be it children, be it old people, be it people of different sexual orientations from us. Let's all be kind and let's strive to do the right thing always. Thank you so much. Wish you all a lovely weekend.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Phyllis, for such a good presentation.
Bye.
Yeah, before you leave, would like to do, or Sylvia, I've seen you've unmuted. Would you like to talk?
Yeah, thanks very much, Phyllis, for this very insightful talk around safeguarding. I think a couple of things there that you mentioned in your remarks, your closing remarks. How do we create a culture of safeguarding We know that there are policies that we can look at and adapt to our situations. And we know that children are at risk and adults are at risk, but there are also communities or individuals or groups of people who are at greater risk as well. And the risk doesn't stop at our workplace. The risk goes beyond that. So even if we clock out at 5, we still carry the risk with us, and we're still obliged to adhere to the regulations and safeguarding principles. So thank you so much. Thanks to our participants. We really appreciate your feedback, your questions, because they help us make this a better initiative and improve the work that we do around mental health and health in general. So thank you so much. Thank you to our facilitators and the team from our side. And we look forward to engaging in the next program that will happen, and we'll communicate soon. So if you have any questions that are still pending, please feel free to use the collaborative space on the platform. Feel free to reach out to the team. And we look forward to seeing you in the next session that's now getting into the deeper dive of what data is and what we can do with what we have. So thank you so much. Have a nice weekend and keep well. Bye. Over to you, Diane.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate that you joined this session. Without you, we won't have this session here. So yeah, we'll close up on here. If you have any question, you can reach out. The WhatsApp also is very active. You can ask your question there as well.